which I think I saw glimpses of when meditating, and also when helping with certain chemicals. We can talk about that later if you want. But I had glimpses of the disappearance of the ego, and it's both really terrifying and really liberating at the same time.
Hey team,
Hey, what's up?
hey, what you got?
So, I was listening to our podcast episodes again over the last couple of days, like yesterday, because, one of our friends got super excited about the podcast. So I was listening to some of the episodes she likes again. And we mention meditation a lot, but we never really get into it. And I think, it's a good time to actually talk about meditation and what it means to us. And I think it's getting more and more popular with people. Like I hear people mentioning all the time recently.
Right.
So I think it's a very cool thing to do right now, even though I guess we were cool when it wasn't cool, because
Is
we've been
it?
doing it
Yeah,
for.
kind of.
Yeah,
Maybe we were at the
I
beginning of
mean,
the
yeah, we're
cool
we're
wave.
late in comparison to the Buddhists who've been doing it for
Right,
thousands of years, but I guess like in terms of Western society, maybe
for
a little
sure.
bit ahead of the curve.
They still,
Actually,
by the way, they still look at me weird when I say that I meditate. Like, oh, you're an
really.
alien. Yeah.
Oh, but maybe it's also like where you are, because like I think in Berlin, and in the circles I'm in, I think it's actually getting super common. I just installed like some dating apps, and like all the people have meditation on their dating app profile.
It's like yoga, meditation, and
Yeah,
yeah, makes sense.
yeah, especially the yoga people and all the stuff. But Berlin is a little bit bohemian and so on, so I think it makes sense. I think like Italy is a little bit more conservative in that sense, right? So
Yeah, I guess.
probably,
Although
yeah,
Milan is supposed to be
yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah, so actually, sorry. Uh, I realized, I think I've been meditating now for, let's see, I would say maybe I started around like 2016 or so. That would be 8 years almost. And I'm pretty sure you got me into it, actually.
really.
Yeah. When did you start?
Oh, I don't
Must be
have
more than
no
8 years.
memory for dates, but I can tell you that the first time I tried, so it all starts for me with technology, right? It's weird enough because meditation and technology, you wouldn't say they're connected,
Yeah.
but it started when I found Headspace. That
How did
was
you how did
the
you find it?
I think somebody mentioned it to me and said you have to check it out. Is amazing. Is and it was one of the first apps that started, right?
Yeah,
And
I remember actually there was a TED talk by the guy, right?
yeah.
Wasn't he like a French guy or something? And he gave a TED talk, and
Ah,
in
the
the
accent was like British or something,
I mean, we
or
can find it.
Australian. I never know, but I think the weird thing. It's actually the thing that got me into it is also partially the thing that got me out of that specific app.
Andy Pudicombe or something.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, he has a TED talk from 2013, and this is the guy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's English. I'm mixing
Okay.
up. There's another guy that like was French and went to India or something. There's another TED talk, but this guy, now he like juggles on stage. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so this is the guy I think that made the app, and that was 2013.
Wow. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
think I was one of the early adopters of the app, but for sure, like when it came. So one of the thing was very well designed,
Mm.
and they are those trendy, shiny things that you start, but if they get the job done and they get you to start a good habit, why not, right? So
Yeah.
it was like very good design, good animation, and it was explaining like the benefits of like
Mm.
daily, everyday life benefits of actually starting meditating. And then I was like, wow, I should start, and I got very much into it. I was doing it every day. The problem with the app is that, I mean, it's the benefit and the problem is that you always hear the same voice. And maybe now it changed. I think recently I checked it out and they improved it a lot. There's a lot of other, even too many things. That's also the problem, right? With this thing, when they grow like they start too many tangents. So
Sounds familiar.
yeah, I mean, simplicity is an important piece, right?
Yeah, our podcast starts a lot of
Right,
tangents as well, I think.
right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so at some point I got tired of like listening to the same voice.
Mm,
And so I had to, but I think the problem was that specific voice, because then I shifted into to Calm,
mm,
the
mm.
other app, and I've been using it for years now. And
Are you still
honestly,
using Calm?
yeah, I still use Calm. And her voice, I think it's Tamara or something like that.
Oh, but she
Uh,
doesn't do it anymore, I think, no? Or maybe no, there was another voice in the beginning. I don't remember. Yeah, I
I'm not
remember.
sure.
I
Now you
remember
have few
Tamara.
people. Like there's not one anymore. You have multiple
Are
again.
you paying for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it. Like there are,
Yeah,
I'm sure you have a lot of like
I
seasons
have a
in
lot
meditation.
of apps also. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
But that's the thing. Like ultimately, uh, I see that I had seasons. Like there was a season with Headspace, then I got tired of it, and then
Mm,
I got into Calm.
yeah.
And but I'm curious because you're more consistent than me at pretty much everything, and
I don't know about
I
that.
think so.
Not about the drinking water.
Maybe. But my biggest like consistent stream of meditation days, I believe, was one spring where I did 4 months in a row. So what is it like?
Without a break.
Yeah, 120. Yeah, 120 days without a break.
I mean, I don't track anymore. So, like, I used to track every day, but I think, there's always days when I don't do it because of whatever. Like, every
Mm.
once in a while, like, just now I was on vacation. I skipped a couple of days. Um, but I think I probably average at least 300 days a year, I would say.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I would guess
Way
probably
more
more.
consistent. You see, I did like 120 days in a row, and then I had like 3 months with
But
nothing.
I made it. I truly made it a habit. I actually like. It's like there's a couple of things. So I used to track my habits in the spreadsheet. We actually started the spreadsheet together like years ago.
Yeah,
Remember, we had like a spreadsheet to keep track of each other's habits. And I don't track anymore. But like some of the habits, they're so ingrained now that I like it. I feel it feels weird not to do them. Like my morning walk, doing Duolingo in my first bathroom break of the day. It's one of
right.
the things, and I basically meditate every day on the way to lunch. Almost like I go outside, sit down on some bench. Like right now, I'm doing it on the cemetery. Actually, there's a cemetery close to me, and I find cemeteries like super peaceful places. I really like cemeteries. It's weird, maybe it's a little strange, but I go there, take a walk, I sit on the bench, and I do my meditation. I actually stopped using any apps.
Mm.
But like, well, let's talk about the apps in a second. But I think most of the time in the last let's say 3 years I don't use apps, but I just discovered waking up again, I guess, Sam Harris's app,
Okay.
which I feel, did you try to use it?
Yeah, I did, and there are
Yeah,
some good things about it, and the
i
podcast
actually
is
think i
amazing.
actually think it's the best of all of them, but let's talk about it after, because like I wanted to go back to why you started in the first place. Like what what made you start and what made you stick to it?
Right. So I've always been interested in exploring the other side of the way we are, right? Because there's this dichotomy between Western Eastern society and like how people live, and it's pretty different. Although the Western part, like now, it's influencing everything, also in the Eastern side of the world, but still, like the cultural aspect and the tradition, like in East, have a very different approach. And I didn't really, as with everything that I do, I didn't really go too deep into like the causes of that and everything. But like I always look at the practical surface of like what can help me every day, right, on a day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was looking at was, okay, I see that people are way calmer, and one of my issues is um, not anxiety per se, but like I would say stress. And
Yeah,
so meditation was a way to calm down my mind,
yeah, yeah.
overthinker, things like that. And so, yeah, so I think that was the starting point. And also, they say in life to be balanced, that's kind of like a philosophical point, but you need a bit of everything. And the you need the unpredictable aspects of life, you need the serene, joyful aspects. And then there's this element that we kind of like lost in the modern life, which is the time to reflect. And in a way, there is you could say, I'm going to be in a tangent here, I'll keep it quick, but like religion has that aspect of like it makes you think beyond yourself, makes you think about
Yeah,
others.
spirituality in
Right,
general, right? Yeah.
right. And so I always found like a nice connection between like going to church, because I used to when I was a kid for a long time, um, Catholic church. Going
Mm.
to church is kind of a meditation per se. Like it's another
Yeah,
way of
yeah.
meditating.
I think for sure, for sure. I think that's kind of like, I mean, this is a discussion I have with a lot of people, and I think people that know me know I don't believe particularly in anything. Um, I used to be like a super militant atheist actually when I was younger. I think now I've opened my mind up more to like the benefits of religion and spirituality. I think like, regardless of like the stories told in the holy books of the different religions, which,
Mm,
it's a discussion for a different time. I think there are certain things that are clearly beneficial to people and the reason why people stick to religion. And I think, one of them, like a big one, is community and, a feeling of inclusion and acceptance and so on. Like this is huge, right? Like
right.
people, like if you're really strong, a member of a certain religion or, spiritual movement, like you will move, let's say you move to a different city, the first thing you do is like find that community, right?
Mm,
Like go to that church, go to that synagogue, go to that whatever, and connect with people that have think similarly, the values associated with it and so on. And everyone has their own thing. Like if you're like an avid surfer, you will go to like the surf spot in town and like connect with people that are similar to you. But the other thing is like what you said, like it's this taking time to like um connect with yourself, connect with you know the existence, and also like praying and meditation are actually
mm,
very very similar, right?
right.
Regardless if you believe in the story told by the different religions. I think the act of, I've never prayed. I think maybe as a child I prayed, but like it was more like, hey God, please give me a pretty girlfriend or something, like give me a lot of money, or I don't know. um but that was like more like a childish approach. But like I think Islam is the one where you're supposed to pray five times a day, right? You like,
I
and you
think
have to like look for a quiet space, like sometimes it's a church, but some, or like a
there's a
what is it?
specific time of the day when
Yeah,
you
like
do it.
exactly. And then they like they put their little rug, I guess, and then pray towards Mecca and all the stuff, and like look for a quiet space. And it's super similar what I do. Like every day, like I go to my bench and like I take the time for myself to meditate. So in that sense, I think this is a very common, a very similar. And I started going to these meditation things at a Buddhist,
Mm.
I don't know what it's called,
Like a
not a church,
retreat
not
or
not a
something.
retreat, like
Okay.
just like a, what is the church for Buddhists, like temple, I guess, maybe a temple.
Temple. Yes, I
Yeah,
think so.
maybe. Like, so I just went a couple of times to meditate with them, actually, and it is pretty religious. I mean, for the one I went to, it was like a Tibetan temple. Um, they also do like prayers and recitations of like some holy
Right.
texts and stuff. So
I've done that
that
as well.
stuff,
Yeah.
yeah. So that stuff kind of like feels a little bit strange to me. But they also do like the meditation part, and so and doing it with other people gives you also the connection to these people and the connection to the higher thing, whatever it is, not necessarily God, but like you know life, I guess, or
Right.
consciousness. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I've done it. I think it was in Spain or something, and I went for like a 90 minutes meditation session, and you have like this person that it was not a monk or anything like that. It was, but he was telling specific, like reading specific passages of, um, I'm not even sure which book, but the idea, there's an aspect of like doing it with others, which is again going back to the concept of like app, not app, or in group. There's definitely another sense, another feeling when you do it with others. But that, I think it goes back to what you're saying, the aspect of a community. So not only you are taking time to like rest your mind, reflect, because also
well, you
there's a,
shouldn't reflect technically when you meditate,
yeah, but
right?
then again, the more and more I think about it, and the more like the more it's actually not really the case. Like this thing, this notion of like you should empty your mind is actually, they keep saying it a lot, right? Recently, I mean, not recently, but it's part of the practice of like saying it's not really in the, it's like it's not the goal, is the process, right? It's not that the length at which your mind doesn't think is that as soon as your mind starts thinking, you should, without judging yourself, without like, getting angry at yourself, you should bring you back to not thinking. And that constant like thinking, let me go back to not thinking, thinking.
Actually, yeah, actually, so my current interpretation, and my interpretation of what meditation even is, changes a lot over time.
Mm,
My current interpretation, and this is also, was helped a little by doing the Waking Up course in the Waking Up app by Sam Harris, is that it's not about not thinking, it's about observing what happens. Right. So if there's thoughts that come, you observe the thoughts, but you don't engage with them. Right.
right.
So, but
Right.
the question there is, what is you anyway? Because you is really your thoughts. But this is a whole can of worms that we can
We're
open, and maybe
getting
we,
deep
yeah,
very fast. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, but it's true. Like, but in a way, there are two faces of the same thing, right? As you say, like there's the act of like bringing you out of your thoughts, and that act is actually the goal potentially, right? Again, there's no goal, because if you already set yourself a goal, you're
You
doing
already failed,
something,
right?
right? You're doing something, you're failing.
Yeah.
But but it's the concept, like there's this aspect of, and it's funny because it's, if you look at it, it's part of like all religions, right? This act of building consistency of practice,
Hmm.
because discipline, consistency is, one could argue, one of the keys for I don't want to say happy life, because happiness is another concept that it's not even, I'm not even sure is like the thing you should strive for. But the point is like for fulfilling, let's say,
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
life, as like consistency. And the more I go on, the more I think, not only in meditation but in general, like the more I see these things as very much interconnected, of um, really building rituals and consistency on doing things. It's what ultimately gives you this sense of fulfillment, because you're creating something in steps. uh, and you could argue the way we live, like as humans, is very hard to sustain bursts of energy, while consistent outputs of energy is way easier. Not easier in the short term, but not easier to keep up with in the long term, right? Because we are made to like constantly looking for novelty in a way, and there's a lot of like societal like influx on, you shouldn't be consistent, which is another problem. But yeah, so going back to the meditation part, I think it's one of those practices that it builds your muscle of first consistency. And also within the meditation itself, it's the same thing of like, be consistent, and like bringing yourself back to like the centered state, where you're not as you're saying, you're not attached to the thoughts, you're not attached to what the external world gives you, but you basically try to get rid of any attachments to anything, which in a way, it's counterbalance, like it's balancing this constant drive that we have for attachment to people, things, everything in life, right? That we want ideally. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a I think it's the art of giving yourself balance ultimately. And that's why I more and more, what I see is that, for me, the problem with consistency in meditation is that I ultimately go back to it when I'm really in an emergency situation.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's why I really like I really appreciate the fact that you don't like that you tend to do it daily, because I see that when I'm fulfilled by my daily life, it's very hard for me to meditate.
There's a couple of things that came to mind as you were talking, well, I'll mention. I'll start with the last one because it's the most pertinent to what you just said. Is that more and more I meditate all the time, and that doesn't. So there's like, I think there's two types of meditations I do. Not in terms of like what I do while I meditate, but like what I consider meditating. So one is the actual taking your time, sitting down, and
Mhm.
saying I'm meditating now, right? But the other side is like meditating while you do everyday stuff, because you can meditate, as you get better at it, you can do the same practices as you do stuff.
Right.
So very often now, just as I walk down the street, like I take this time to meditate. Even sometimes, like let's say I have a pain, I have a neck, I have neck issues, I have headaches sometimes, and all these things. You can meditate on these things and just feel these feelings and realize what's happening to you, and take this as a time to meditate also.
Right.
While this is not like um the kind of like structured meditation as sitting down and so on, I think the goal really, and now this is kind of getting deep, because like, did you do the entire course by Sam Harris? Because I think it's so beautifully done, like
I
for my
did
brain.
the initial one, I think, like
The
the
30 days or the
yeah,
28 days.
I think so.
Did you do also these like interspersed philosophical 5-minute things that he has? Because I thought they were
I
fantastic.
Some of them, yeah. I think when like, this his philosophy is great, honestly.
I
Yeah,
really love it. Yeah, it's
yeah.
like it really changed my mind on what meditation can be.
It
And
seems like
like,
we're sponsored by Sam Harris.
yeah,
Which
actually, so the
I
funny thing
wish.
is, like, I didn't even pay for the app because I got the free 30-day trial from
Okay.
the Huberman podcast, because he was on the Huberman podcast, and then there was a link, and I could get the 30-day trial for the initial course, and I might pay for it at some point, because I actually thought so. I've tried all the apps, tangent again, but let me see. I have
Mhm.
all the apps installed. So I try. So I used to do Calm a lot, like, but I think I never paid for it actually. I always did the free ones. So Calm. There's Simple Habits, which I used to like a lot. There's Sunvelo, which I used for a little bit. There's Rewhy, which I got from the
Mm,
Happiness Coursera
mm,
course,
yeah.
which actually, back to the happiness thing. There was like a big section on how mindfulness and meditation is one of the biggest contributors to happiness, actually, which is super interesting. And waking up, and like now I think waking up, at least at this point, because I think like when I first tried waking up like years ago, it didn't, like, I didn't really connect with it so much. But now that I know more about meditation, or now that I have done it more times, I think I could really like get the benefits from his like actual teachings in between the sessions. um because I really think that waking up took my meditation to the next level, like truly.
Mm,
Like, I've been doing it for let's say 8 years, I don't know. And I think this was the biggest jump I've done in terms of understanding what it can mean to me, when I did this. And this was just like a couple months ago, actually, because it took the whole meditation thing to like a really spiritual level. And now I'm actually more interested in the whole like spiritual aspect of meditation, because like, I think, there's there's like different types of meditation, right? There's like the just like the meditation, or like also different purposes, right? So there are a lot of Westerners that meditate. I think they do it like for stress reduction, for calming down, and so on.
right.
But there's the whole spiritual aspect of meditation, where you're actually, supposed to get to what the I think the Buddhists call nirvana, right? Like
Yeah.
the
The enlightenment.
non-attachment to anything physical, and the, yeah, enlightenment, basically,
Yeah.
right? And I think as far as I understand it, and of course I think I don't know who fully understands it. I don't know if there's such a person. Maybe the Buddha, or the truly enlightened Buddhists. Um, they can, either permanently, or at least like at will, get rid of their ego, right? So like
Yeah.
completely detached from their sense of self, which I think I saw glimpses of when meditating, and also when helping with certain chemicals. We can talk about that later if you want. But I had glimpses of the disappearance of the ego, and it's both really terrifying and really liberating at the same time. I don't know if you've had these moments where you're
Yeah.
like,
So this is a very important topic. I think it's the
yeah,
at the core for me, at least. Like looking at like thinking about this aspect, like it's really at the core because it's. So yes, the answer is I briefly meaning like for a few weeks. The moment the period where I was doing it every day, at
hmm
some point two things happened for me. One
hmm
was I started doing longer and longer sessions. So I
hmm
ended up at some point I was doing like an hour and a half meditation
hmm
every day, like the last month, because you start getting in the habit, and when every time you get in the habit, you want to do it more, right?
yeah, yeah,
And enjoy it more because you do it more. There's also that, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so what happened was at some point I was basically doing like half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, and when I had
yeah,
like random times during the day, I was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. Let's meditate,"
yeah.
because you get this like good.
Matteo not knowing what to do is a new thing to me.
Right. I mean, that
Yeah,
was because that goes back to the other aspect, which is the current, um, let's say, clash I have with two factors. One is meditation brings you to that state of, you don't like, if you do it a lot, and if you get used to, like, you stop thinking about the goal of, like, I don't need to think, and you just like abandon yourself to the fact that I'm going to do it now, and
Mm,
whatever happens happens. That
mhm.
like instantly frees you of a lot of aspects that like block you, because
Yeah.
you're like, I don't have anything else to do now, right? There's also that
Mm,
aspect. And so what happened is, you stop thinking about I, me, right? And
mhm.
it's more of like, stuff happens around me, right? And I'm part of the stuff that happens. I am a piece of the puzzle, right? So
Yeah.
what you were describing, like the, let's say, the walking meditation, that's a great exercise,
Yeah. I
because,
love walking
right,
meditation. It's fantastic. Yeah.
you go out and you like experience things, and your senses, like, like you see cars, whatever, hopefully also trees, and like you see stuff happens around you. You hear, like, there's all the senses, the aspect of senses like ground you to like the experience of the
Yeah.
present,
Yeah.
which is great. And so while you do those things, you stop thinking about yourself, and it's not that your mind is like, it just like tunes down and like lowers the volume of your internal thoughts, and because you just perceive stuff that happens around you, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
great, and it relaxes you
Yeah.
instantly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then the other problem, the problem that like the side effect of that, is that like the last good aspect, I guess, is that you feel comfortable. The baseline of your like joy, let's call it, is higher, because you don't think about all the, because majority of the things that we think about are not positive,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. I mean,
we're,
for definitely for like neurotic people like you and I think there are
yeah,
people that have more positive thoughts than me for sure.
it could be. I mean, there's definitely an aspect of
Yeah.
like the personal characteristics.
I think like you and I both share a certain uh tendency towards neuroticism.
Yeah, but if you talk to people, like, also conversation wise, very
Mm.
very rare, unless something very good happens about someone's life, that they tell you about the good stuff. They
Yeah, it's a
always,
disease. It's a
yeah,
disease. Like here, like this is, sorry to interrupt
no
again.
worries.
Like this is in Berlin at least, and I think in Germany in general. Um, it's cultural also, but I think very often strangers have something to say when they want to complain, but very rarely do they come up to you and make you a compliment just because they enjoy something about you or
Right,
something. Like
right.
it's crazy. And I think in some countries it's a little bit better. Like I think in some countries strangers will come up and say, "Hey, I really like your smile. I really like your, I don't know, shirt or whatever." But people would come up and say like, "Hey, why why are you doing this stupid thing? Why are you crossing the street here? I don't know."
But there's an
Um,
aspect of rejection there, right? Like fear of rejection. Like if you open up, basically, you're making yourself more vulnerable if you say something good to somebody, because you're basically saying, "Hey, I appreciate you," or "I appreciate something about you." And so there's a way for them to like answer it in a way that like will make you feel worse than before.
Yeah, and I
Well,
think
huh?
yeah. So no, yeah, totally, I agree, and I think like this is where I think practices like meditation can humanity as a whole bring to another level of compassion and I think we could potentially make humanity because I think everyone wants to experience kindness, but no one distributes kindness. Not no one, but like the percentage of people that go around distributing kindness is so small, right? And I think even I mean I know I could be much kinder to people around me, and I think meditation, and this brings us to the whole Buddhist thing again. I think because like there's the three core. This is something I looked up while you were talking earlier. Like
Mhm.
there's the three, the three learnings of Buddhism. The three core learnings. One of them is moral conduct. One of them is meditation, and one of them is wisdom. So the three things that you
Mhm.
should always work on is like your moral conduct in society, your meditation, and your wisdom. So you're learning of the world.
Right. And the first two you could say are consistency based, right? Moral conduct is something they do every single day. Like you try to like be close to a specific ideal conduct, right? And
Hmm.
meditation consistency as well. So, but I think the interesting aspect, the problem that I see, and I still haven't like figured out like a, at this stage I'm thinking more and more it's a season thing. You know the concept of season in
Mm-hmm.
life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The concept of season is connected to the concept of actual season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that there are moments in life, periods in life, where you build up, and you don't have this like open experience around the word, because the word itself is harsher, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
condition, meteorological condition, like the weather itself. And so you have the winters of your life, you have like the summers of your life, and you
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
springs, is connected to the renaissance, like the idea of like, uh,
Renewal.
right. And
Yeah.
so this concept is similar, meaning that the environment interacts and influences you, and also other people do. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
what I'm noticing is that there are moments, I see it in business, I see like with friends, there are moments, like specific period of time, where it's like, since we're all connected to each other, because we live connected to each other in a way or another, one negative, domino, right? Like one negative
Yeah.
act gets reiterated to others, unless there's some other bigger event that like stops it. So like somebody is rude with you, you're stuck in traffic, giving an example, right?
Yeah.
Somebody is rude with you, you get frustrated,
Yeah.
nervous, and you lash out at the post office that you were
Yeah.
going to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a connection. And
The
so,
the chain of screaming, like
right,
from How I Met
right,
Your Mother. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But that thing is real, and I see. And so there are moments, like I see it in business, for instance, right? You have when the sun is up, because spring, and it's very specific, regional in a way, you could think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. For sure. For
When the
sure.
sun is up, people don't want to work too much, because the sun is up, they want to experience life. And so they think less negatively, because the sun is up. And there's a concept there as well, like it not it influences you to think in a more positive manner.
Yeah.
And also they are less prone to like get nervous about like minor things,
Yeah.
minutiae,
For sure.
because so there's that's I mean, it's a practical thing that I see, right?
No, for sure. I think like something, I complain a lot about living in Germany because the winters are so harsh and cold and dark and so on. And it's really terrible. And people, like, notice it. Like, I mean, I think like it's also my interpretation of other people's actions because, like, I think if I'm in a bad mood, I'm more prone to negatively interpret other people's behavior,
Mm,
right? Like, it might be a neutral behavior towards me, but I interpret it as an insult or whatever, and the other way around. And like what I do notice, aside from the fact that now, when the days are getting longer and the sun is out more, like I'm just in a more positive mood, but also like people around me, like people are much more likely to just smile at me for no reason. Like
right.
everyone is like flirting, like people are just like people are in a good mood for no reason. I think one of the like I often complain that I live in a very seasonal place where like the winters are so harsh and so on, but the upside is that when spring comes everyone is going nuts, right? It's like people
Right.
suddenly like are ecstatic, and this is really beautiful to experience. Like I think like in northern Europe, I don't know how it is in Italy, but in northern Europe the springtime is magical. It's like everyone is just like out and about, everyone like the first like rays of sun, and everyone's like in the parks, everyone's in such a good mood, like partying on the street, and like it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
true. And that raises the question, like, is it really better to live in a place where the sun is always up and is always warm enough but not
I
too
wonder,
warm?
I wonder, yeah. I wonder if there's correlational studies between climate and happiness. Probably there must be.
But that goes back to the concept, like, do you really, and I don't know why we always end up there, but do you really want to be always happy? I mean,
It's
it's a
a
tough
it's a
question.
great question. Yeah, I don't know, like because like some people say, actually my ex used to say always that she prefers a life of like really happy and really terrible moments over a life of just neutrality. And sometimes I think that, but like I think if you once you're in when you're in your really bad moments, you're like, no fucking way. Like I'd rather be
Right.
neutral than this. But hard to say. I think life without ups and downs would also be pretty boring. And okay, now we can get back to the philosophical stuff. Do you know Alan Watts?
Yes.
So I don't know. I think I sent you some videos of his speeches on YouTube. Like there's some people
Yeah.
that make animated videos on like the stuff he said. And one of the videos really really influenced me a lot. and he said, so let me see if I can get this right. He said something like, imagine you're God and you can, you know, you can do whatever you want. Like you can make a life. So I'm really bad at like retelling stuff,
Hmm.
but so you can put yourself to sleep and get any dream you want, right? You like are all powerful and you can like make yourself any life or any dream that you can imagine. And the first thing you would do is like you make you make yourself a life of like 100 years of health and like pleasures every day, and like all the, you know, all the sexual encounters you want, all the food you want, all the
Hmm.
pleasures every day. And then you wake up, you know, from that dream or, you know, life or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, that was pretty nice, maybe I'll do it again. And then you do it again, and after a while it kind of gets boring, right? Like you're like, okay, I had all the pleasures now. And then you're like, oh, now maybe I'll add some like hardship to make it more interesting, right? It's like reading a book or something, or like a
Right,
movie.
reading a
Yeah,
book, watching a
yeah,
movie, playing a game, you
yeah.
don't, the unpredictability of it is what makes it.
Exactly, exactly. And then and that's basically the thing. Like the story ends up like this. He's like, and at some point, if you have millions and millions of years, you'll start to make lives for yourselves that are unpredictable and also have all the bad stuff. And at some point, you'll make exactly the life you have right now. And this gets super spiritual, right? Like maybe the life you have right now is just that one dream that you know the the higher being is giving you right now. And the beauty of it is that it's unpredictable and you don't know what's going to happen, good
Yeah.
or bad. Yeah.
And
So
that, I think that connects to the problem that I think it's important to address, and I want to hear your opinion. So the problem that I see is this: meditation gives you this sense of calm, clarity, relaxation, higher frequency, let's call it, where you like, it doesn't affect you, like the environment will affect you a bit, but like you're coming from a different perspective, and so despite the person being rude at you, you are nice at him, at her, right? Like you give back not what you receive, but you give back something better every day, because you come from a different place. That's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah, I
That,
think that, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
right, go ahead.
No, just because it reminded me of this. I want to say it was a TED talk. It's usually a TED talk. I don't know, where this guy said it was like on the purpose of life and what the point is. And I think one of the, I think I forget who it was. He said, um, a life of, or a universe of complete chaos is very I don't know, very sad or
Hmm.
very, you know. But a life of, or a universe of complete structure and complete order and complete predictability is also really sad. But what we have is the most beautiful thing, which is something somewhere in between. And I think the thing he said, that the purpose of life is just at every moment, in every place in time in universe, you have the chance to make this moment and your surroundings a little bit better, to leave that place and that moment in time a little bit better than you found it, you know, to leave your mark. And I think that was a really beautiful.
And that goes back to the
Yeah,
consistency, like despite what people or life throws at you, you stay consistent. That's
yeah,
key. I mean, the way I'm thinking lately is like that's key to everything. And but the going back to the problem, on one end, if you live your life like that, like with complete sense of calm, I think you miss out on something. And is the old age old like concept of, do you need to be a monk and live in a temple and like get rid of all your possessions, and or do you want to follow the society, like the capitalistic way of life, where like you accumulate and then things own you instead of you owning things, and it gives you like frustration and stress because you're always looking for something new and better, and
yeah,
there's never enough. And the
yeah,
problem is that I don't buy, I used to think, okay, the way is complete Buddha Zen, right, way of living, where you don't need to need anything, you're perfect as you are, this kind of concept, like you're
mm,
amazing as you are, like this, everyone is their own snowflake. And it's not that I don't believe it, but I still think that's half of it. And if you just follow that, you're not going to be fulfilled, and ultimately that doesn't drive for greatness, and greatness can be a lot of different things. It's not that you have to like invent a new rocket to go to Mars, but like greatness is also like making the world a better place day by day with your actions, and small or big, right? And making people around you, which could be like three people, right? It doesn't have to be like one country even. But the point, so that's the struggle that I see, but personally, right? Because I have periods where I'm like, okay, let me just like calm down, reflect, and I do meditation, and I have to like refine balance. And then I have periods where I can't put myself to do it because it goes very much against this drive for consistent improvement and betterment of like everything around me, and building things and producing things.
Mm,
And it seems like a, like not a waste of time, but like an unnecessary pose that I don't need.
mm.
And yeah, so that's the problem, right? And what gives you fulfillment? Not certainly not being still and like being in a park all day long, although that gives you a sense of calm, like a profound calm for sure. But that doesn't, you're not contribute, like it's not that you have to contribute to anything, but like you're not for yourself, like thinking about individually again, if you want, you're not pushing yourself. And pushing yourself, I think, is a needed ingredient for a fulfilling life. That's at least my view. But I see there are like two conflicting views. Maybe they're not really conflicting, and the point is
Yeah,
that,
I don't think they actually are, but like, yeah.
yeah. So that's the question I ask myself more and more is like, should I? Because you can't do everything, and maybe it's just a seasonal thing, like contraction, expansion. You have periods where you need to calm down, you need to relax, you need to reassess where you're going, what are you doing, and you need to get rid of like the ego aspect. But then the ego aspect in itself, yes, it's bad, but it also partially a drive.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and and whenever like you talk, I think about so many things I want to say. So let's try to. I'll try to like mention all the things I want to say. First of all, did you read the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse?
No,
It's a,
I didn't.
you should. It's a fantastic book, and it talks a lot about some of the stuff that we just mentioned. So I'll to give you like the cliff notes real quick. So it's about a guy that lives in India at the same time as the Buddha, basically Gautama
Hmm.
Buddha, the the person that basically invented Buddhism.
Hmm.
And it's about this guy, a very young guy, who is trying to find the meaning of life. And he first starts out by kind of like being that monk person that you said, like he just meditates every day, and that's all he does, and lives poor on the street and just meditates, and then at some point he just decides it's not for him, and then he does like other things, and then he goes to a city, and then he becomes like a businessman and like super rich, and then later I think he just like becomes this like uh this hedonist that just like goes to like sex parties and consumes and takes part of all the pleasures of
Hmm.
an urban life and so on. And then he changes again, and I don't want to like take it away, but like at the end he finds his peace with life and like his meaning with life. And I think it's really beautiful. It's like it's the favorite book of several of my close friends, and it's a very famous German classic book on the meaning of life, really. So it's really beautiful. It's very short. You can read it in a day easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
will. I
I
will.
suggest. I suggest.
Looks
Yeah.
interesting.
And then, okay, what was the other things I was thinking about as you were talking? Hard to keep track. So I think these things are not necessarily contradictory, right? So it depends on. Maybe we start with that. What do you? Oh, did remember. Okay, I interrupt myself. One other thing I wanted to say. Do you remember? I'm pretty sure I sent it to you. The Wet But Why, the blog, right?
Yeah.
So did I ever send you the religion for the non-religious article that he wrote?
Not sure.
I thought it's like so great. You should also check it out. I suggest I suggested to many people that I have this discussion with, like kind of like finding the meaning in life if you don't necessarily believe in any particular religion. And your talk of seasons reminded me of this, because he always does these little cartoons that like illustrate some of the ideas he talks
Hmm.
about, and how we are like always living in these moments of complete fog of like what really the bigger picture is, and we're just like stuck in like our little problems or joys or whatever it is. So like we have moments where you think everything is amazing, everything's great, it's going to be great forever, but it's just like the little spike up in our up and down of life. And here's great little cartoons on this. And then other times you're like, oh my god, my life's the worst, I'm so depressed, like I just want to die, like, it's going to be bad forever. But it's also just a little downward, spike
Right.
in your life. So this is like, if you haven't read this article, I highly suggest it too. It's really nice. um yeah.
No, but so what you're saying is, but and I can subscribe to that. Like you're saying, complaints and like high points and low points that you think are high points and low points, in reality they're very small disturbances from the baseline that you're at, and that's what you're saying. Like, and ultimately,
Yeah, but like we're so stuck in that moment. So if we're
yeah.
currently on an upward trend, we're so full of joy and we think it's like the best thing ever. And if we're currently on a downward trend, we're like, oh my god, my life is the worst, why does it happen to me, and so on. And actually the sentence "why me" could be interpreted in a super positive or super positive negative
Yeah.
way, right? It's like, why me, why is this my life? You could think of all the positive things in your life, and this is kind of called gratitude, right? You're like, oh my god, I'm so grateful for having this and this and this and this. And I'm sure like almost everyone can find things to be grateful about. And then there's the other one, which is like, you can always find things to complain about, and everyone, like, of course there's people that suffer more than others and so on, but
But
there's
yeah,
always, yeah.
that's where like it's easier, that going back to the aspect of like it's easier to find the negatives than the positive. Like gratitude is an effort, because
Yeah,
if you have to think about what are your like top complaints, I'm sure like you get them like top 10, you get them like
in
almost
5 minutes,
instantly, right?
yeah, or in
And
one
he was
minute,
like,
yeah.
what are the top 10 things you're grateful for? Wait, let me think about it.
Yeah, let me think for one
And it's
hour.
not that
Yeah,
they're not there, they
yeah,
are. So there's a, I think it was Munger that was mentioning the reverse, the concept of like, think about the negative and then reverse them. It's going to be way easier. I think it was Albert
yeah.
Einstein practice of like,
Always Albert Einstein, right?
yeah,
Everything good
yeah,
was, yeah.
yeah.
Probably
But
not Albert Einstein, but
but
yeah.
but I mean the point, it makes sense. So there's another point though, like, okay, the baseline is there, you do, sometimes you're in the moment and you think, wow, this is amazing, and it's, yes, it's good, but it's not that amazing that you
Yeah.
think. Or another moment is like, oh, this is awful, and it's not that as awful as you thought. But then there's the
Nothing will
building,
last forever.
right?
Like
But then
that's
there's
the
the
point. Yeah.
building part, right? And yes, nothing is forever and your life is finite, we know this. But then there's this trajectory of your life, and this is what, like, and there's a trajectory that goes beyond your life. But then there's a separate chapter about how, like, I was thinking the other day, I was talking to friends, the other evening, and we were talking about, like, I don't know, Napoleon or something like that. And I was thinking, like, how many people that are not here with us anymore, do you know their names and what they did in the
Yeah.
history of humans, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have probably, and that came to another kind of like discovery, let's call it, for us, which was like, how many women, which is worse, right? That's the problem. I think that's still the problem to this day.
Yeah.
Do you know their names? Like,
In
men,
history, you mean
yeah,
like in
you
history? Yeah.
probably, like, of like men, you probably have like 100. And some people might have more because they study history. Some
Yeah.
people might have like 20 they know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of women, you really like struggle, like, find 10, like it's gonna take you a while, which is a
Yeah. Yeah.
problem of like the way the word functioned so far, and things are
Yeah. Yeah.
changing, I guess. But like, but then still, like, overall, like, there are probably less than 200 people that you can name that you have not met, but you know something about them, about their
Like
history,
famous people in history.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
point is, yes, there's a trajectory beyond your life, but it's not something that goes with memory. It's more in the genes, you could say, right? Like, and the fact that, like, you are a portion of like your family heritage. Like, it goes back to like your great great grandparent, and what they did affects you, and like makes your life today because of the choices they made.
Yeah.
Partially, you could argue. But then, so that aspect, that trajectory is very beside the point that you will not live to see that trajectory. So that the
Yeah.
question is like, why would you even care about it?
Yeah.
And that's a bigger question. But like even your personal life trajectory, there's a trajectory. So there's something that you need, maybe it's a strong word, but you might need to build, because if you don't, then, so this is the problem, I don't want to say problem, but like this is the counter argument on living in the present. Yes, you live in the present, you experience the present, it is the right thing to do for many reasons, but then the more you're in the present, the less you have an eye on the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's funny. Like I think about this a lot, and I think in some ways the meaning of life is to be present, because like you always only have now, right? This is actually a fact. There is always only now. The future is never there, right? Tomorrow never comes, right? Isn't it like this riddle? It's like
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
always coming but never arrives or something? I don't know. Tomorrow, right? So because like at any point in time, it's only now that exists, the current moment. And I agree with, I think what you're saying is that we I could just sit down and be like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna enjoy life and all the sensations I have now and all the stuff. But like, you also have to work, and you need money to eat, and you need to plan your life, and you know you do need to think about the future, like just for practical reasons. Otherwise, you're just gonna starve, right? Um, and I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, but like I think like you have to find a balance of like being in the moment and still thinking about the future and your impact on your impact on the universe and the universe's impact on you, and so on.
but
Otherwise,
but
yeah,
that opens on a bigger argument. Sorry to interrupt. Like it opens a bigger argument. Like you could say a lot of the effort that you take, it goes back to the Tao, the concept of like many things that you do, you might not have to do them even, and they will
yeah, yeah,
figure
for
out by
sure,
themselves, right? Many
yeah,
of the worries that you have, you might just want to forget about them because they're gonna sort out.
yeah,
And also ambition is kind of like, is like bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is inefficient, right? You don't need
mm,
so much muscle for your life
yeah,
to
yeah,
function, right? It's
yeah,
an inefficiency that you strive for. And the same thing is ambition. Ambition, you don't need it. You
mm,
can find something, and the bare minimum that gets you going,
yeah,
that gets
yeah,
your life going,
yeah,
and then you can spend your most of your hours sleeping or meditating. And I am 100, like I have experienced it for those few months that I did it consistently. I've experienced this sense that like you're not bothered by much, and then life
mm,
happens and things happen, and the bad things happen anyway,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
this idea that we can prevent them, maybe 5%, but
yeah.
most of it you can.
We have basically. I mean, even if you believe in free will, which I actually don't, but even if you do believe in free will, we have like of all the things that happen to us, we can control, yeah, less than 5%, I
Right.
think.
So then you have that. And yes, if you're from a better position in life, meaning you have more resources, and resources are
Yeah,
not just wealth, but also even more, the more these days I think about it, is like the people you know is way bigger resource than everything else. And so because we are connected, and so that like improves your life considerably. But the point is like even if you have that, still you can't really affect that 5% too much.
yeah,
And so things happen anyway, and you can live as much as you can really of your time like in a positive state, if you meditate and get present. And the worries, most of the worries, as we said, like potentially you can do, it's not that they're not needed, but like you won't be able to do anything about them. And the things that happen to you many times are not the ones that you worry about, and so and the ones that you worry about, they don't really happen. So so the aspect with that is, okay, if you take that as a notion, the fact that you can't really affect your life so much as you think, and ambition is kind of inefficient, you do better for the planet by just sticking to the basics. And like you think about a classic argument today of the environment, and
mhm,
how our behavior impacts the environment also in a sustainable and sustainable way for
yeah,
nature, for
yeah,
life, right? The more you do, the more you create It's like with your own body, right? That we discussed. Like the more you do, the more you create pollution, right? In a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah,
And so the less you, the more you stay still, the less you consume, the less you
yeah,
consume.
yeah, for
But
sure.
then, so this goes to, if you bring it to the extreme, this goes to a point where what's the point of doing the things then? You just do the bare minimum, you live your life, and you can have a very happy life like that.
Yeah, yeah,
But then what have you accomplished? So that's the other side of it, right? Because I think there's a portion of the way of thinking which is life is accomplishment, and it's not for the sake of the goal, but it's for the journey of like accomplishing thing. And it goes back to the idea of, if you knew what would happen to you, like this is a good exercise, mental exercise, right? Let's say you know how your life is gonna go
hmm
in advance.
hmm
Would you still do the things? And would you do the
Well,
things,
you have to, right? It's like a time machine. You know it's gonna happen, but you have to do the things.
but would
You,
you engage with those things? There's no meaning anymore
yeah, yeah.
because,
I see what you're saying. Yeah, like you know you're gonna get married to that one woman, so
yeah,
why would you put any effort into courting her? Or yeah,
right. So that
yeah,
like disrupts any meaning, because then you're like, okay, so it's gonna happen, or if it's not that, it's
yeah,
something similar,
yeah. That's
right?
good. I like that. I think yeah, the uncertainty makes that's actually really good. I like that. I think the uncertainty makes life worth living, right? And that is kind of like the whole thing about Alan Watts' story, also, right?
Mhm.
So you want to have the dream where you don't know what's going to happen. Otherwise, it's just boring. If you know, it's like a spoiler, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
watch a movie where you know the ending. So yeah, I like that a lot. I
But
like that a
then
lot.
so what, at some point I thought, and I'm still there, I'm not over it. I thought it's just how you deal with, and it's a very subtle balance how you deal with that uncertainty, because
Yeah,
that's the source of the anxiety, stress,
yeah,
right? For
yeah, yeah.
many, me
100%
included.
for me also.
Right.
Yeah,
Because you don't know, and you would want to control, but you wouldn't really want to control. You think you want to control, but then when
yeah,
you have it
yeah.
under
That's
control,
good.
you don't
That's
care
good.
too much.
Yeah,
And so it's dealing with that uncertainty, making it fuel your actions, because
yeah,
that's fun. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
you could see it as a game in a way, but on the
yeah,
other, and there's the ego comes back up, because it's like, oh, if I did it right, then I must be good. And you're like,
yeah,
yeah, maybe it's not really just like you were lucky here, you were lucky
yeah,
there,
yeah,
unlucky there. But at least it gives you this sense of like, yeah, I mean, it was a good journey. It's like when you go in, to the theme park, and you have these roller coaster, right? Are
yeah,
you in control of it? No, but you still enjoy it because it happens to you, right? You
yeah,
don't
yeah,
make it happen, but in
yeah.
a way you made it happen because you went to the theme park and you went to the roller
Yeah,
coaster.
yeah, exactly.
You
This is good.
engage
I
with it.
like this. I like
Yeah.
this. Yeah, that's good. I think so. I mean, this is getting very
Yeah.
philosophical. Do you want to get back to like actual meditation real quick? Because like I think one of the things that we maybe haven't really touched upon is what does meditation even mean? So maybe in your own words, what is meditation?
Okay. In my words, I would say meditation is a constant work on on consistency. That's how I view it. I view it as a constant work on managing your mind.
Interesting. So I don't know actually what the technical definition is because I mean, there might be different ones. I know that there's different types of meditation, and the one that I usually mean when I say meditation is mindfulness, right? Or
Mhm.
vipassana, as I guess vipassana is a Buddhist term. I don't actually know.
Mhm.
Probably it is. But there's like let me say all the types of meditation I know, and then maybe you can add. So there's the just a body scan, right? The simplest form that like
Yeah.
all the apps do, like the body scan. It's just like it's really an exercise of concentration on your sensations, right? So like you use the usually the physical sensation of a body part, and then you go to the next body part and so on. Then there's like I think like the um is it called transcendental meditation with
Yeah.
the
The
mantra?
mantra
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
that's the mantras,
Yeah.
right? So you like say you say whatever. Either it can be, I think, like it can be like a sentence or like a word that doesn't have any meaning, or it can be something that has a meaning. So it could be like just om, or it could
Right.
be just some weird sounds, but it could also be like I am great, I'm loved, I don't know, I'm strong, whatever. That's also
Yeah.
kind of fine.
Borderline affirmations.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's then I think there's like a really central one in Buddhism, which is loving kindness, right? Which is
Yeah.
like, and this is actually, I have to admit, sadly, it's one of the hardest for me. I should practice it more. And I think there's the, what is the, there's a the Buddhist name of loving kindness meditation. Do you remember it?
No, I
It's a
don't.
short word, like a 2-syllable word. Oh, let me look it up. Um, loving kindness, loving kindness. Oh, I'm bad at Googling on my phone. Let me do it here. Okay, never mind. I'll do it later. But and then there's the, I think then the main one is the vipassana. At least for me, right? This is the one that I usually mean when I say meditation, which is the mindfulness one, which is just um, noticing things as they arise in consciousness, right? So it's
Labeling them, but not judging them. Yes.
exactly. So it's not even not thinking. It's noticing, well, first of all, it's noticing your bodily sensation. So it could be like your sense of touch, like the wind on your skin, even like, but you always have a feeling of your limbs and stuff, right? So you always, not always, but like you usually you feel maybe the air on your skin, or like your butt on the chair, or whatever, or some pains in your body. And then your sense of smell is always there, your sense of taste is always
Yeah.
there, your sense of vision, even when your eyes are closed, you have a sense of vision, right? So you see your eyelids from the inside, you see some lights depending on the light outside. And even if there's no lights, you will see something, just because your neurons always fire and will
Right.
show you something, even
You
just
just
little.
don't put focus to those things all
Exactly.
together because you can focus only on one thing at a time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, loving kindness is called meta. That's what I was looking
Meta.
for.
Okay.
Meta, like with two T's. Um, and uh, and then the, the sound. I really love meditating based on sound. I don't know if you ever do that. It's one of my favorite ways to do it. Um, and
What do you
then,
mean? What do you mean based on sound?
so like, just like what you put your focus on. Like, I think like you can,
Ah.
the body scan is a type of mindfulness meditation where you focus on your physical touch sensation, right? You like,
Yep.
or like your interoception also sometimes, like the feeling of your tongue in your
I mean,
mouth, or
with senses, there's one other that I tried. There was a very weird app. I don't remember the name anymore.
Mhm.
Which was with light. You close your eyes,
Yeah.
but you put your phone very close, like the
Oh,
flash.
you mean, yeah, you mean this is actually Rosamund Pike is like involved in that. I actually
Yeah,
like it a lot. It's called
it is strange.
Luminate.
Luminate. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
did for like a month or two. It
I
is
like it a lot, actually. I really like it.
it is interesting because you have like it's basically all these things play with your sense, like it basically gives you a focus on one of your senses. I mean, not all, but like some that we mentioned, right? And so you stop thinking. So what they have in common, they stop your um, rational thinking on like your thoughts process, basically, right?
I
That's what.
think I think they're supposed to, yeah, immerse you in the present and stop following thoughts,
Right.
right? So like, if a, and this is the last thing I wanted to say, is that there's the physical sensations, but then there's also the internal sensations of your brain, which is your thoughts, right? This is what we call thoughts. Just like, because your brain, at least for me, my brain is always going, even if I don't think, I think, right? There's like stuff happening all the time. And the problem with the mind is that it constantly puts judgment on stuff. So like, let's say I have a neck pain, which I have constantly. I can just feel the pain without actually labeling it as negative. And actually, this is really interesting, because like, if you get very good at it, and sometimes it works for me, you can make it not be negative anymore. You can just feel the pain, but
Yeah.
the pain, because pain is a word that we associate with a negative emotion, but technically it's just a sensation.
Right, it's
It's
a
a
signal.
it
They say there's this chain that I really like as a concept where it starts with pain. It's like it starts with a physical sensation, not necessarily pain, right? You have
Yeah,
because also on the positive you have like physical sensation.
yeah,
It's like when you the first time you fall in love, you have like the what they call it, like the butterflies in your stomach,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So you have a physical sensation, then it comes the emotion attached to it
yeah,
because it
yeah,
starts from the physical, and then it comes the logical thought
yeah,
on
yeah,
top of it, or backward rationalization of like why is this all happening, right? And this is this chain. It doesn't start from the thought, but we focus on the thought and we
yeah,
forget about the rest of the
yeah.
chain. Yeah.
Yeah, this is something I also really learned from Sam Harris's course, which is, there's four quadrants in this, right? So there's like um, there's a so something positive happening to you,
Mm-hmm.
and you labeling it as positive, something negative happening to you and you labeling it as negative, something negative happening to you and you labeling it as positive, and something negative happening. No, I don't know if I did all of that.
Yeah, it's like 4 quadrants. It's like
Yeah.
positive,
So
positive, like yeah, okay.
yeah,
Positive, good. Let's say good is your labeling it, your judgment of
yeah,
it,
yeah,
right? Positive, good. Positive, not good.
yeah,
And negative, good. Negative, not good. I guess that's yeah.
yeah. Because so the point is, you can have the most amazing things happen to you and still be miserable, and also the other way around. You can have terrible things happen to you and still be delighted,
No,
right?
that happens every time because of the focus you put, right? Maybe something good
Exactly,
happens to you,
exactly.
but you're focused on something else that is not good, and then you don't
But
even.
like, but you just label it, right? So, for example, this is so you did the roller coaster thing, which I think is great. So, for example, I'm scared of flying, and whenever
Mhm.
there's turbulence, I hate it. Like, I hate it. But when I'm in a roller coaster, I love it. It's the same exact
Yeah,
sensation. The feeling in my stomach of the butterflies, that you call the butterflies,
yeah.
like the sensation of falling. I hate it when I'm on the plane, but I love it when I'm in the roller coaster,
By the
even though
way,
the actual sensation is identical.
yeah, it's the two phases of like fear and excitement.
Yeah, it's the
There's a
same
subtle,
thing.
subtle difference, and
No,
it's
fear and
just
excitement is. I think fear and excitement is exactly the same thing.
physically speaking, yes,
Yeah,
kind of. I would say, yeah, kind of, but like very close. And then it's just the way you interpret it.
yeah,
But yeah,
100%. So like when I'm in a good baseline and I drink coffee, I get super motivated, excited to do stuff. Because like it raises the level of
yeah.
excitement or excitability. But if I'm depressed, sad, whatever, and I drink coffee, I get anxiety. And anxiety and excitement are, I think, like physiologically, they're exactly the same thing, just that our brain labels them differently.
And this opens up like maybe my definition before was not super accurate. It's because it was more into the controlling aspect of it, like
Yeah,
managing
yeah,
your mind. It's really more, yes, managing is probably a part of it, but it's really more about meditation is a journey into, like it's a process into knowing yourself, because that's the
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
like I don't buy the aspect of I'm going to be a monk, nothing affects me. This is
Mhm.
bullshit. Like things affect you, and it's actually part of like how life is full if you experience things as you were saying before, right? As you experience things that change your baseline, that like move you in a positive or negative, right? But then it's about how you act on top of that. Like, okay, some things happen to you and they create a reaction in you,
Yeah.
okay, and it's internal
Mhm.
initially. Then reactivity, like in the external, is already a problem, right? We know
Mhm.
this. The psychology tells you pretty easily that a reactive mind, and meditation talks about it, right? A reactive mind does not do the right thing. And also the
Yeah.
Tao says it, right? Don't react, follow
Yeah,
the
I
flow,
mean,
right?
it's also a good lesson in human interactions, because the reactive person is the one that gets into fights, and
Right.
the non-reactive person is the one that
And
just
it's
stays calm.
perceived as not stable, perceived as like
Yeah.
not positive, right? So there's that. But then saying that you shouldn't be affected is like bringing you against the wall, because you're human, you're affected, things
Yeah.
happen to you and they create a reaction, and it starts physical, you cannot do anything about it,
Yeah.
right? And not letting I was reading a book that's really counter intuitive, let's say. It's called Radical Honesty.
Mhm.
And the concept of this book, I'm still struggling with it, because it says basically what the book says is like there are multiple levels of being honest.
Mhm.
And there's a level where you really don't have any filter and you say everything every time to everyone.
Yeah.
And that creates so much stress initially, because also I guess every day it brings you to a like state of vulnerability that is like the highest, because you're basically opening up your mind to people, and then this can have a lot of side effects
Mhm.
and sometimes unnecessary struggles. And one of the things that he argues in the book, I didn't finish it because I had a hard time like wrapping my
Mhm.
head around it. And he was like, arguments. There's this thing where in meditation says, feel the fear, don't
Mhm.
suppress it, because sorry, not the fear, the anger. don't suppress it, because suppressing an emotion is not a good idea ever.
Yeah.
Like internally though, don't react, don't get angry at the person, don't say something back because they made you angry. Just feel it, as you said, like label the anger.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm feeling angry, it's part of life, it's okay.
Mm.
Let like accept it. The sooner you accept it, the sooner it goes away, because you let it flow. Perfect. What the book says is like, actually you should lash out to the other person, because that opens up, like that basically improves and speeds up the resolution of it. If you don't tell people when they make you angry, you resent them, and this creates a cut in the communication with the person. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a view, and I was like, gosh, this is exactly the opposite that like meditation tells you, which is like, you feel angry, feel it, label it, but don't act on it.
And let
And
go. Yeah.
yeah, and it's true that it's harder. It's like, yeah, it's very hard, because it's like it's like a feeling of, I need to breathe, and I can't
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
meditation says, don't breathe basically, but don't suppress it, like let
Yeah.
it. And it's hard because your instinct brings you to lash out to the other person, to get angry, to say
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And then he says the way you should do it, which is, the way you should argue is like, you should, when you're angry, is focus on the facts, don't
Yeah.
focus
Yeah.
on, and but then again, it's something completely different from what they say, which is focus on the feelings. I felt, the Crucial Conversation, another book that talks about, is very much about like, I felt like this by your behavior, right? Which is like,
Yeah.
focus on the
Yeah.
so very hard. There are different ways of thinking about this. Again, I haven't found
Yeah. Yeah.
one way.
Yeah, I think so. I think no, no, I totally understand, and I think, yeah, I think meditation teaches you to. I don't think it teaches you not to have emotions. I think it teaches you not to get stuck on the
Hmm.
emotion, right? I think like you can resolve the conflict internally or externally. I think this is kind of like the point here. Like, so if you're angry but you can't change anything about it, then you there's no point in continuing to be angry. And I think I also get this from Sam Harris. I get a lot of my information from Sam Harris. Um, he said in a YouTube video that I saw that emotions are actually this is actually really great eye-opening thing. And I watched this when had like a super anxious, depressed phase in my life. Emotions are actually extremely short-lived, right? So an emotion,
Mm.
if nothing is re-causing the emotion, it lasts seconds. The actual emotion lasts seconds, and if you don't use the emotion to trigger more thoughts, to trigger the emotion again, because it's a vicious cycle,
Yeah.
the emotion will only last 3 seconds. You can let go of the emotion basically instantly if you learn how to. And meditation teaches you how to. That's the point. And emotions are neither good nor bad. That's the thing. I think like as kids and in society, we start labeling things and as good and bad. And for example, pain, and I think I'm gonna go back to this because it's the easiest one. I think pain, or the difference between pain and a pleasant feeling,
Hmm.
is just in your brain. Because like for example, you can get a massage where someone like really presses on like a muscle that is sore or something, and it feels amazing, right? It feels amazing even though it's pain. And I think there's also, and there are people that actually enjoy pain, like BDSM
Yeah.
people, right? They like pain because they associate a feeling of pleasure with the feeling of pain.
It's another way of like emptying your mind, because if you feel pain, sometimes you,
It's
you
just
stop thinking.
I think it's just relabeling the sensation, because the sensation isn't good or bad inherently. I think the sensation just is the sensation, and the sensation of being tickled can be good or bad. Some people like being tickled, some people hate being tickled. I think it's how you label it in your brain. And like, depending on what happens to us as children and so on, I think we might be super ticklish because we're scared of bugs or whatever, and then like whenever something tickles us, we're like, oh my god, there's a bug, and then you like freak out.
Hmm.
Or like maybe as a child, like our mother or something played with our hair, and so we really love the tickle, like because we associate it with something positive. And I think like the pain is the same thing. I have chronic pain issues, and I can rarely, but I can sometimes meditate myself. And not it doesn't have to be like a structured meditation session, but even like just during the day, I can decide, I can literally decide to just feel the pain as a sensation that I don't label as negative, and then
Yeah.
it basically takes away the pain. Even though the sensation doesn't go away, it takes away the suffering. And this is the whole point of the whole Buddhist and meditation and stuff. It's like getting rid of suffering and not getting rid of any emotions. It's just getting rid of suffering from your emotions.
Yeah, I mean, there's a connection. Why, when something is painful emotionally, right? Meaning like something happens, so it's not like, oh, I just fell off my bike, right? But like something happens psychologically, and that creates the physical sensation first, and then the emotion second. Why does it stay? The reason, I agree, like the reason is because you keep thinking about it and you keep reliving it, right?
Yeah,
Like you lived it the first, and the
yeah,
reason why we do it is because we're trying to figure out, I mean, that's at least my view on it, we're trying to figure out the impact that this will have on a longer term. And again,
yeah,
it goes back to the trajectory of life, right? So it's like something psychological happened. What does this mean? You try
yeah,
to find the meaning of that
yeah,
thing, and you're like, okay, maybe, and you connect it. Maybe this
yeah,
means that in the future this is going to happen.
yeah,
And so you have, like, we all have this tendency of like, because it's part of like the two main goals of human beings, right? You need to, and one for sure is, which is survival, right? So
yeah.
you like try to look out for things that might have a lasting impact on your life.
Exactly, exactly. We I mean that's the whole point of conditioning, right? So like if we realize that whenever something cuts us, it's bad for us and we won't survive, then we will avoid being cut,
Right.
right? Or
But then
bitten or whatever.
there's a point there, which is, it is actually true that some things have a lasting impact, and that's
Yeah.
why neurotic people like me like
Yeah.
you start, uh, it's like a self-reinforcing aspect. Like if you're right once, you think you're always right in like
Yeah. Yeah.
worrying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same. I think we're the same in that.
Because you try to prevent, and then but it
Yeah.
is true, like it's clear that like give you an example, right? Part of, as we said, like part of life is being around people, being connected with
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
There's clear studies that say the more you're connected with people around you, like you have close friendships or you're close with your family, the more this will have a positive impact in your life overall in a
Yeah.
long trajectory.
Yeah.
And I was reading the other day an article that said, those listicles, and one of on the things of like what are the key in life, like the most impactful things in life. And but it was said, like it was written one thing that I read very rarely. I read rarely, and but it's, I believe it's true, which is like friendships. There's a difference between like new friendship and old friendship. The more you grow,
Hmm.
because there's just not enough time to like create this like base of memories and like experiences in life when you have a new friend. Maybe you do a lot of things together, but also,
Yeah.
when you're younger, you have more free time, so you can actually have more,
Yeah.
build more
Yeah.
memories. But and so the article was saying, keep your old friends close, because you have very few of those like very deep connections
Mm. Mm.
and friendships, and you have very few in your life, right? And so
Yeah.
keep them close. And so that is one of those things that one should know and try. And in life, you never know, because maybe for many reasons you lose a lot of your like old friends, or they were not really great. So like I see a lot of advice lately about, oh, like if your friends are not like, you're the average of the five people around you, so if your
Yeah. Yeah.
friends are not up to par,
Absolutely. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
dump them and find new ones. And you're like,
Yeah.
wait a second, that that's not good. Like on one way it makes sense, but on the other hand is
Yeah.
completely like
It's
it's a
destroying
disaster.
your yeah. I think, I mean, as always, I think, as we know, there's a balance, right? You can have some old friends that you always keep around and then always work on looking for new people that make you a better person. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But then it goes back to the trajectory. So it is true that like you have to think about these things proactively, because if you don't, the idea of like, oh, things will sort out, maybe again, we're just rearranging chairs on a ship, and it doesn't really do anything. And I don't want to get there, but the point is, maybe if you just follow your natural inclination. Like sometimes I think about it, like I'm like, I'm very thoughtful of many of the things I do every day. Like I think
Hmm.
about the things, and I
Yeah.
set myself intentionally to do things. And
Yeah.
sometimes people tell me like, oh, you're not like I see that you're like you consciously thought about these things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for some reason not always is viewed as like not genuine, but like not natural in a way, because
Yeah.
why would you think about it? Like, oh, you think about, sometimes I hear, oh, you think about so many things. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I want to control things, and so that's why I do it, and I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then on the other end, so sometimes I think maybe it's just about letting it go to the extent where if you don't think about it, ultimately you'll naturally get there anyway.
Mm.
But it's such an experiment that will have an impact that it's
Yeah.
hard to do, right?
Yeah. No, I get you. I mean, it's those are big philosophical questions,
Yeah.
honestly. Um, and I think we could talk about this for hours. I just want to. I think maybe we'll do an episode on on the meaning of life again. I mean, it's like there's hours and hours and so on.
I mean,
But
we
yeah,
talk about meditation. It's so close to
yeah, for
go.
sure.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when I have a phase of like where I meditate a lot, I think like meditation is the meaning of life, and in some ways it is. And I don't mean the practical aspect of the structured aspect of sitting down and doing the meditation practice with your app. I don't think that's the meaning of life, but like the meaning of life, I think, is experiencing life, right? I think that that is the point. The point is not being stuck in the future or the past, but really experiencing life. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to kind of stop thinking about the future ever, because that's part of life too. It's like you can experience those thoughts, and you can experience your anxiety, and you can experience your fear and whatever. And I think you can use meditation as a tool to feel better, but you can also just meditate on what is happening to you.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is kind of the last thing I really wanted to touch upon, which is this next level of meditation, which I kind of like got in touch with through Sam Harris's Waking Up app. And actually, like whoever knows me can contact me for the link, or actually you can just like find the Huberman link. You can do a free trial on the 30-day thing, because I thought it was fantastic. But I think it's more helpful when you have some experience already with meditation, because I think like even learning how to sit still for so long is tough, right? I
Yeah.
think that's one, like if you've never done it, it's tough, and people are not used to sitting still anymore, and observing your thoughts and all the stuff, and just like not being too fidgety. And I think like many people that have never meditated think they know exactly what it is. They'll answer stuff like, oh yeah, but painting is my meditation, or
Mm.
dancing is my meditation, or whatever. But it's not the same thing. It's like it's that is called flow state, and I think flow state is
Yeah.
amazing, and I think
Okay.
everyone should try to experience flow state, because flow state is awesome. But it's not the same thing as meditation, because in flow state you do get lost, and meditation, the point is not to get lost. And so the next level of meditation that I was that I wanted to talk about maybe for the last part of this episode is that goal of ego dissolution. And actually, yeah, ego dissolution is maybe the best thing,
Yeah.
like the where the goal isn't stress reduction or being in the moment or anything like that, but enlightenment. And the Buddhists call it nirvana, which is like um this state of being, apparently, which I'm not anywhere close to that, but like people say that exists, where you can constantly let go of your ego, and become one with the universe, right? And this sounds so woo woo that it's like, if I had told myself this thing like 10 years ago, I would be like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? But
Yeah.
I now have seen glimpses of it, and that's why I'm kind of excited about it also, because I mean, and there's a contradiction in here, there's a paradox in here, because like you shouldn't meditate with the goal of reaching nirvana, because then
Yeah.
you're already kind of contradicting uh, the whole point of meditation, which is not to have a goal. But there's yeah, you wanted to say something, I think.
No, I agree with you. Like, so that's the nirvana thing, the enlightenment thing is that thing that you cannot look for, you cannot actively try to reach, but then ultimately you would want to reach. The problem I have with that notion is that it goes back to the point of it gets rid of you. ambitions in a way. The ambition then becomes dead, becomes not having any ambition. And I don't think ultimately what I see, and I like your approach before, what you said before. Like, if I have to see it, look at what's really the best approach so far to this day for myself,
Hmm.
is thinking in life you have this constant black and white, hot and cold, like constant. Give me a second. Cough. You have this constant um, struggles, let's say, constant, like one way or another way, right? These opposites,
Yeah.
and balance, moderation is key. I think we talked about it in the past as
Hmm.
well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea that the idea that like you need to reach a place where ego is bad, fine, it is true. It can serve a purpose, it can serve as a tool sometimes, um, for to reach specific goals, but it's not something to identify with, because if you do, your experience of life is so minimal. So it's really about, as you said, about the experience of life. And to me, the framework that I look at every day when I act in life is, I want to get better, I want to improve my life, because the act of improving my life gives me joy, gives me fulfillment. And meditation is, as you said, a tool for me to calm down some of the outlier experiences that I have in the negative, because on the positive it's harder to be like, oh, I'm too happy, let's meditate, right? But
Yeah.
ideally that's what you should do, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
You should,
Uh, I,
because it removes the high point, too high up. Because what's the
yeah,
problem with too much of a high point? You're gonna
yeah.
crash down at some point, because it happens, right? So
I'm too happy. Let's meditate. I love that.
yeah, so that's the thing, right? You should like stay in the middle ground, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. So my I don't buy the, like, it's not something that I look for. I At some point I was like, yeah, I need to get there. I need to get to the point where I don't have based thoughts, right? Like I just don't, and I experienced it for a few weeks, as I said, but and that was like giving me a sense of peace. It was giving me, it was reducing my goals in a way. It had that
Hmm.
side effect, but
Hmm.
also I was living good, well, like
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the problem I had, and I close with that, is that it's so hard to stay there. So
Yeah.
hard.
I think so. I disagree a little bit. I think I know exactly what you're saying, and I do feel that contradiction also. But I think the way I think about it now is that it's not about getting rid of your ego. It's about realizing that the self doesn't exist to begin with. It's not even getting rid of something. It's realizing something. Um, and so rationally, it's a really complicated subject, because I think, like, for anyone that hasn't felt the absence of the ego, it's really hard to understand what that even means. And I think the point is, and I just really like some of the metaphors he uses. There's like two metaphors that Sam Harris uses that I really like. One is the one of the reflection in the window. Did you hear that little
No.
his little?
No.
So the way he describes it is as follows: you stand in front of a mirror, a window inside of your apartment, and you look outside, and there's a yard with a tree or something. And then you have a friend, and you say, look at the window. You can see yourself in the window, and you can, right? Like, if you know how to focus on the window, you
Mm.
can see a little reflection of yourself. But your friend says, what do you mean, there's a tree? Like, and you're like, no, no, look at the window. There's, like, you will see yourself if you focus on the window. And he's like, oh, look at the beautiful tree. Oh yeah, there's a bird in the tree. And he will not understand what you're talking about, right? And this is kind of like the thing he's trying to say, is that the absence of the existence of the self, of the I, of the ego, is always right there for you to see, but you have to practice on how to focus on something else. And it's not that the tree doesn't matter, right? So in this example, the tree is your life, and all the stuff around you, and all the stuff. But there's a realization that is right on the surface, which is that the self doesn't actually exist. And I think getting better at recognizing, at like shifting focus at every moment in time, it doesn't mean that the tree isn't important. It just means that you can shift your focus and realize that the self doesn't exist, which is this reflection in the window. And that doesn't mean that all the other things are unimportant. It just means that it gives you the power to realize this kind of like oneness with everything else. And it takes away, I think it takes away a lot of the anxiety in life when you feel one with everything, because like as you said, like you realize that you're just part of this process. You're like a wave in the ocean. The wave in the ocean has its individualness, right? Its individuality. Like it does exist. It's not like the wave doesn't exist, but the wave is just a manifestation of the movement of the ocean. In the same way, this is my own metaphor. That's not from Sam Harris, but like that's how I think about it. I am the wave, but I'm not disconnected from the other waves. But I feel like I'm my own thing, but really I'm part of like a larger thing. And this, I think, like being able to see it from time to time or more often gives you a sense of peace and just like oneness with everything, that takes away the sting of the pain that life can bring to you when you realize that you are life, right? Like there's just your consciousness, and it's just not even your consciousness, it's just consciousness. And in some ways this kind of blends into pantheism, like the
Mhm.
idea that everything is God, like the entire universe is God, and you're also God, right? You're just one manifestation of God. And I'm speaking about this as if I actually had attained the state, which I haven't. Like I just, this is my rationalization of all the stuff that I heard about it and read about it, and these little glimpses I've had when I meditated, or actually, and I should say, tried some psychedelic drugs, which are supposed to be a shortcut to the state. And I think like people that have taken these drugs, and I think you haven't, right?
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah. So, people, the reason that people take these drugs is that it gives them glimpses of the state of being one with the universe. And I have tried a few times, not like these crazy doses that people say you should take to really see it, because it's scary. It's really, really scary. I can tell you, like I've had a bad trip, and it's
Mm.
it's really scary. But I think that's kind of the point, because it's scary to realize you don't exist. But I
Yeah.
think on the other, just like to finish the
Mhm.
sentence, I think on the other end of this you don't exist realization is the realization that everything is one thing, and we all, and I think like it can take away your fear of death and all these things. And it doesn't mean that your life as such becomes unimportant to live. It just means that it gives you peace in the life you have with all the things you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating as a concept, and I see not only the value of it, but also the there is one layer is that it is true that you're part of everything. It is true that, like, before you didn't exist, now you do, after you will not, and everything that you are will become something else. Those concepts makes total sense, and it's true that you are a piece of a bigger puzzle, and that uh, free will or not free will, you do something which is part of a bigger thing. That all makes sense, and that gives you like it widens your perspective. Is like a big picture view, like 10,000 feet view, and of like, what
Mm.
are your worries, what are your concerns in a universe that's way bigger than you are, and anything
Way
that
bigger than we can
right,
imagine. Yeah.
right, anything that concerns you doesn't really impact anything really,
Yeah.
except you. But then there
Yeah.
is a you, and I think the idea, I mean, at least my perspective is like the idea, and it's not nothing original, but the idea that there isn't, like, on a practical level, right? Like, all you just said makes total sense, and is a concept that I think serves again as a tool to, like, go through life and to figure out that, like, things that happen to you are not the end of the world,
Mm.
practically, right?
Yeah.
But then there's the other practical aspect of, like, you wake up every day in your own body, and you have a condition in life, and the condition in life, it is true, is interconnected and completely ingrained into everyone else's condition, right? You have a family, you have friends, you have, like, you live in a place, right? You have a place in the world, and that you can, in a way or another, free will or not free will, you can change. And by focusing the fact that you can change it, you can change it for the better, for the worse, right? You can do good things, bad things,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that level of agency gives you power. And the problem with the ego thing to me is that it is the power for yourself, not the power for, like, it's like you're detaching from the rest because you're like
Hmm.
thinking as I am something, I want to do this, right? And you don't see the big picture anymore of like being part of other of everything else.
Hmm.
But like if you keep the notion of like you're part of everything else, and what happens to you on a big scheme of things doesn't really matter,
Hmm.
but what you can do still doesn't really matter on a big scale, but on a smaller scale can make a difference. I think it is part of like the meaning, because you, again, otherwise it's so easy to get tempted by, okay, so if nothing really matters, why would I do anything, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and not consciously thinking the reason. I always think like if we have something, there should be a reason, nature, like
Hmm.
as human beings, right? And so the fact that we have like this rational mind, there's a reason for that, right?
Hmm.
And you can put it at use, otherwise we would be trees and that's it, right? But we
Yeah.
have a rational mind, we think about things, we logical, we create something new that doesn't exist, right? Somebody
Hmm.
says you I think it was knowledge, like human beings are the only ones that can actually create new things that didn't exist before,
Hmm.
right? And it is true, like we can create something new, and it's an act of uh like mental faculties put at use, right? So I think we should keep that as another layer, right? There are these two layers, they're connected, and the first one guides you on the second one, I think. But then this notion of, maybe it's just mine, but like building the consistency aspect of like showing up, doing the thing,
Hmm.
and not being scared of like this thing being harder sometimes than it than you were used to before, or like always harder and harder. It's part of it. It's like the experience of pain, right? Like it's part of life. It's actually one of the reasons why you then enjoy um, going through it and having, succeeding, because you went through the hard part. Otherwise it would have less meaning, and embracing it is part of it, right? Yeah, so just to say that like I am 50% into that what you said, but like the other 50% is still there. I think like the idea of like you're perfect as you are, it goes back to that, right? You don't, because you are not you, you're part of a bigger thing, and everything has its own place. It is true, but we have room for doing A or doing B or doing C or doing D. And if you don't put yourself to do those things, even just for the sake of like enjoying the process, you're missing out on something. At least that's my view. I don't know if it makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, I totally see what you're saying, and I don't disagree per se. I think the way I look at it, and I have to caveat this by saying that I'm not one of those people that has reached nirvana by meditating. Like, I don't actually know what this feels like. I can only imagine, right? And I think I've seen glimpses of it, and I think the glimpse I've seen at times troubled me. Like, for example, when I was on a psychedelic drug, it like really really troubled me. And but I could, when I meditated, I could get to similar state, even though for a short time. And at times it really gave me calm. And I think the metaphor of the window is so nice, because I think you can really use it as a tool. If I think no one would argue, or almost no one would argue, that it's good to be able to look through the window and see the tree, but also be able to look you in your own face with the window. To use the window the way you want to use it at any point in time. You can either use it as a mirror, or you can use it as a window to look at the tree. And it's just the ability to, whenever you live your life and life throws hardship at you, to like look at the reflection in the mirror and realize it's not that bad, and realize you're part of something bigger that doesn't keep you from living your life and doing your
Yeah.
things. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. It does.
And I think like just like using meditation to get quicker access to this state of non-attachment to your ego gives you a tool to be at ease and at peace in the universe, no matter what the universe throws at you. And I think, I mean, potentially that can be a great thing. And I think, there's, of course, this is like, we can talk for hours on
Yeah.
this, but I think we can do like case studies on the people that have reached nirvana and so on. But I think more than anything, I see it as a tool to be at peace and feel one with everything. And yeah, I don't know. I think
Yeah, I mean, it gets to know you get to know yourself better every day if you do it, because you get in touch with your physical sensation more. You get in touch with your emotions more. You see what triggers what, and these things, they don't change quickly, right? Like the way you are now, if you don't look at it and you don't uh, explore your feelings, they never change. I mean,
yeah,
they always trigger the same way. If you start exploring them, maybe you can work on changing your reaction. You don't change your feelings, you change your reactions. To an extent, it doesn't matter why you got to the point where you are, right?
yeah,
What it matters? It doesn't. What matters is that you deal with it the best possible way. And what, again, that opens another point, which we're not going to get into, like, what does it mean the best possible way? Like
yeah,
ultimately, it is hard to discuss about these things, but I think, yes, I agree with you on the fact that it's an additional tool, and not to be seen as, oh, for myself as an individual to improve and get better, and like just for the sake of me again. But it's more of like, it's part of like learning about life, really.
yeah,
And it's a
yeah,
piece of life, and if you don't look into that, you don't learn about it, and then you're missing a piece, and it's a
yeah.
very important piece, I guess. Yeah.
I think the meaning of meditation is kind of like realizing the beauty and the immense, importance of the concept of consciousness itself. Because like in the end, everything that is just in consciousness, right? For
Yeah.
every observer that the universe has, I don't know if there's many observer or many observers or one observer, because like I don't know if your consciousness actually exists, right? I just know
Right.
that my consciousness exists. And maybe to end up the episode, uh, I can leave you with a scary thought. Do
Hmm.
you know about the Boltzmann brain?
No.
So it's a super scary concept, I think, to me, but it's kind of like a good maybe thought experiment, because it shows you that the existence of the universe is meaningless without consciousness, right? Without consciousness, there is no universe, in a way,
Yeah.
right? You can think about
Yeah.
it that way. So the Boltzmann brain, I might get it wrong, but let me try, is a thought experiment that says if you imagine the vastness of time and space in the universe, and just like our molecules randomly having positions in space and time,
Hmm.
the likelihood of molecules randomly associating to give uh to have an emergent consciousness that is for just a second in time, or like a millisecond in time, that arises spontaneously because of this association of the molecules, and gives rise to a consciousness just for a moment, that has all your thoughts and memories and feelings as you have in this moment, and imagines all the stuff happening to it in this moment, and dissolves right again, right? So like
Mm.
imagine you have like a big big ocean of molecules, and just through random chance over the long period of time that the universe has existed, sometimes molecules will associate in a way that give rise to consciousness that is exactly your consciousness, like Matt's consciousness or Tim's
Hmm.
consciousness, with all the thoughts and all the memories and all the sensations that it currently has, and then dissolves again, is more likely than your actual life having existed.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this is a
Pretty
scary
interesting.
thought, but apparently this is an actual statistical argument that people make, that life doesn't actually exist, but it's just a random, your consciousness randomly appears in this moment and makes up the entire universe.